Hello, 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 hello. Okay, so today it's a redo. Don't know how I feel about this, but maybe it's just because I need to spend more time talking about this and I need to be more open and more upfront about the whole story. So, yesterday I shared with you some of my own story with sexual abuse. And I've talked about it in post, and I have never talked about it in video. And it was a little emotional for me. It was a little hard to talk about it, but we need to start talking. We need to get it out, and we need to not be afraid, and we need to stand in our power, and we need to just be bold with it, and we need to be loving towards ourselves. And I feel like if we stand together and we join in unity, then there's no reason why we can't do it, right? So here we go. Here's take two. Okay, so my story begins when I was 3. My grandfather I was sexually molested by my grandfather, and it started when I was age 3, and it went until the summer before I was to start high school. Okay, we got this, right? We're all in this boat together, and hopefully that with me sharing my story, part of my story, then maybe it will inspire you to tell your story, and then I have something to say about those stories. So the summer before I started high school, my grandparents lived in Arizona and I was in California, and periodically they came out to visit, and I always made it a point when I got older to not put myself in a situation where I was alone with him. I didn't like being alone with him. And so that particular afternoon, my grandmother and my parents and my brother were outside, and I was stuck in the house alone with him. And so I tried really fast to run down the hallway and get out the door, but he grabbed my arm and he pulled me into his lap and like, come over here and give your gramps and I'll hug goodbye. And I was very rigid and very defensive because I did not want to be on his lap. And so, might as well get comfortable. And so, it was summertime, and when he pulled me onto his lap, he proceeded to put his hands in my shorts. And I don't know what happened in that moment, but something in me was like, no. And I jumped up and I slapped him across the face and I said, I hate you, I wish you were dead. And I ran out the door. And that was the last time I ever saw him alive. Because a couple months later he died. He had a heart attack and died. So you can only imagine as I was 12, 13, maybe 13, probably 12 and a half. So you can imagine, what goes through a little girl's head. It's like, did I kill him? Was it my fault? And I thought I just wished him dead. Thought I was so powerful, that I wanted him dead. I wanted him gone, and I felt like I killed him. And so I was in a very emotional place. I cried and I cried and I cried, and my parents and my grandmother, they're like trying to console me. Oh, she misses her grandpa so much, and none of them knew. I couldn't tell them that I wished he died, and he did. I was besides myself, it's like, how do you process that when you're 12 and a half years old? It was very emotional for me, and I cried the whole weekend. We were there. I cried at the funeral, and everyone's like, oh, poor little girl. And I'm thinking, fuck you, I hate you. why did you do this to me again? I mean, what a way to go like that, right? I had so much guilt and I blamed myself for so long. You know, they always called me Grandpa's little girl. I was the apple of his eye. Uh, the part that upset me the most as a child, coming from a place of being adult, I didn't know at that point in time, but I found out later on in my life that he also abused my mother and my aunt, and who knows whoever else. But part of that story came out when I'm talking in circles, and it's a little harder than I thought by being on video and sharing this with you on video. I didn't expect this, not at all. I've talked a lot about it in posts, and I'm public about it, but I've never gone on video to talk about it. So I just want you to know that it's okay to feel, you know? I mean, I'm 50, almost 58. Next month I'll be 58. So, you know, I've been dealing with this for a really long time, and I don't know if it ever really goes away. I mean, how can it? But the way that I see it now, and the way that I claimed my power, you know, that's where we need to focus. But it didn't happen like that fast for me. I wanted to write a book about maybe 20 years ago now. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. And I had talked to my mother. And my mother was like, I don't think that's a good idea. I think it'll destroy Grandma. And I'm like, well, okay, I get that, but what about me? You know, I was destroyed too, and so were you. And why in this time period and in this era in our generation, why do we have to be silent about it anymore? I mean, I get in that time period it was a complete taboo, but even with all the media, with all the coverage, with so much coming out about sexual abuse, it's still taboo. We still can't talk about it. And, you know, I'm going to go on a gripe here, but I can't even post about it on Facebook because they won't let me use that word. So, you know, I mean, it's still taboo, and it still takes our power away. And I think that's part of my mission, is to say no more. You know, yeah, something terrible happened to me when I was a girl. And it happened to me until I found that power. Something inside me just snapped, and I'm like, screw you, you don't get to do this to me no more. But forever, we couldn't talk about it. You know, I chose not to write that book because both my mother and my aunt were like, oh, it's going to destroy your grandma. And I thought, what about me? You know, so my grandma has since passed, and I don't know if that's the reason why I'm okay now with it, but I feel like it's time, you know? I feel like it's time that we step out of that shadow. And I do a lot of shadow work, and I've done a lot of shadow work and healing work on myself. And I feel like it's that time. You know, I'm not trying to make light of anyone's situation. I know that there's a fly. I know that other people had far more to deal with than I had. And my heart goes to you. I'm here for you. But moving forward, you know, the past doesn't define who you are. And the past surely doesn't put a label on where you're going and what the future holds for you. And I think it's important now to come together. There's a lot in this community that have reached out to me over the years who share a similar story to mine. And maybe that's why we're all here, and maybe that's why I haven't been consistent in here, because I've just been afraid to come out and really talk about it. And I don't want that for you. I want you to be able to stand in your power, and I want you to be able to claim your power back and say, yeah, I had this terrible experience. And even if you've done healing work around it like I have, I've been working on my own self for a really long time. But there feels like this new layer, this new level of clearing, of purging and releasing this really deep part that just kind of runs and kind of rules through everything. It just seems like now it's like I just want freedom too. And I think that that's part of what this is all about. So I just want to leave you with this message, and I want you to know I'm here. I'm here, and let's do this. Let's start talking. Let's join together as a community, and let's come forward, and let's put that pain and the parts where you can't like be yourself. You can't. It's hard to be in a relationship. It's hard to be intimate. It's hard to trust yourself, let alone feel safe in your own body. And that's what we're going to be talking about. And that's what I want to share with you. And let's take that past and let's really get clear, and let's just really be free from that pain. And let's just move forward together, and let's dance together. Let's be in this journey together, and let's just rock this shit, because I love you all, and thank you for being here.